You want me just to blast through a few topics?
Yeah. I was going to say you can do that, or also you can touch on the 1% APR Model Y deal as well, or whatever else. Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of Tesla in China, we got news this week that they began construction on their Shanghai Megapack factory, which would be the second mega factory in the world. The other one's in Lathrop, California. So back in 2019, Tesla completed, I think it was phase 1 of Giga Shanghai construction in like 11 months. And if you remember back then, like early in January or February, I think it was January of 2019. I remember Lynette Lopez, I think it was, from Business Insider. She was talking about how it was just a mud field and that this factory was never going to get built. And then boom, by December of that year, they were rolling off Model 3s from the line. So that was 11 months. And Tesla completed its first Megapack factory in Lathrop, California in about 14 months. I think it went from September of 2021 to November of 2022. And just looking at how quick Chinese construction speed is, I would not be surprised if they're able to do this in 7-8 months. I feel like they're just so efficient with their construction speed. And remember, this isn't like a full gigafactory. This is a much, much smaller factory. If you look up the Lathrop factory in California, that factory is pretty small comparatively to Tesla's other factories. So it's possible we could see some Shanghai Megafactory production lines being active by the end of this year. We'll see. But certainly by Q1, I think, of next year.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of really interesting stuff happening at the company, actually. We're really seeing a transformation at the company, I think. One story that caught my interest last night that I saw on Auto News was that S&P Global Mobility shared some registration data, and they found that Tesla actually outsold Rivian in terms of the Cybertruck versus the R1T in the first quarter. In the month of March, they actually sold twice as many Cybertrucks as Rivian sold R1Ts. So, the Cybertruck delivery event was in November. So Q1 is really the first quarter of Cybertruck production. And in the first quarter of production, as low as the production was, they actually outsold Rivian 2-1 in March. They outsold it by just a few units, like we're talking less than 10 units for the entire quarter. But in March, Rivian R1T sales were down 65% year over year by registrations, and Cybertruck outsold them. F-150 Lightning outsold the Cybertruck in Q1, but it's looking like we're ramping to a level where in Q2 or Q3, Cybertruck is going to be the best-selling electric truck. So I think they really kind of knocked it out of the park with this thing. I've been loving mine, but it seems like it's a huge hit. I'm starting to see more and more everywhere I go. It kind of reminds me of the early days of the Model 3 ramp where you're seeing
through a lifetime.
I was taking my Cybertruck to dinner last night at Terranea, and I said, let's go, drop it off in the valley and go park it up front.
How
and
did
people can look at it, and I get there, and somebody else already has their Cybertruck there, and my neighbor has one. You're starting to see more and more of them pop up, Kim Kardashian, Justin Bieber, Kevin Durant, all these, celebrities getting Cybertrucks. It's kind of instantly iconic, and I think it's a big hit. So a lot of the bears have been kind of ignoring this. They've been kind of trying to say that the Cybertruck is a flop, but the registration data we saw from S&P Global Mobility contradicts that. I think outselling Rivian R1T in the first quarter of production is pretty impressive. And I wouldn't be surprised if in Q2 or Q3 they pass Lightning Q and they're the number one best-selling electric truck. So in less than 6 months, best-selling electric truck in the country. I think when they start getting this thing down to the $60,000 and $80,000 price point for the non-foundation series, there's going to be a ton of demand.
And with her,
I wouldn't be surprised if by June next month, maybe July, the Cybertruck was already outselling the Lightning.
That she is a clone.
I mean, I think April, like as you said, March. That was March.
Born to prevent
they told us on the earnings call like April that in April they reached 1,000 Cybertrucks in a single week. So
driven
Yeah,
by
it might have
Hades,
to-
Yeah.
a malevolent AI.
And Troy tests
Given cities by a
that they're about
mysterious
at an
signal
800 to
of unknown
1,000
origin.
birth rate, 800
And with a little help
actual
from
rate,
me,
accounts for downtime and
she
stuff like that.
prevailed in a
It's a
great
pretty strong
battle
rate.
at the city of
F-150
Meridian,
did about 7,000 to 8,000 units in the first quarter. So they're on track
becoming
with their
a
current
champion
production
for
rate if
all
they sustain that for a
humankind.
quarter without Selma.
but as useful as she has been, now,
And they've got
I
4680
must
supply
leave
where
her
they need to be to make that happen.
for
So
as she strives to put right what
pretty
Hades
positive. You know,
summoned,
we're obviously just talking about a few
I
thousand
have
units.
made
They're
a
still pretty
new
small.
discovery,
But I think the initial response to the product is really positive.
one that heralds
You
both
probably wouldn't
destruction
have predicted if you listened to the media.
and
Like,
opportunity.
actually, the quote from the S&P Global Mobility guy was actually like, "I'm surprised that they got to such high volume so quickly." So I think they've got another hit here, honestly, and I could see this actually outselling the Model Y in the U.S. in a few years at scale, if they can make enough. Because
Damn, that's a bold claim.
no, and I think people just really like it. It's a great North American vehicle. Like, it's just spacious, it's big. If it's only, $10,000, $20,000 more than a Model Y, I could see that happening at some point. Obviously not this year, but I think it's really, like, just everywhere I go, people are talking to me about it, right? You can't go anywhere. People are like, "Oh, what is that? Can I look inside? Can I take a picture? How much is it?" They want to know about it. I've never seen this type of reaction from any other product before.
Elon also said that the Cybertruck will get FSD potentially with FSD version 12.5, which he says will be June. Let's just assume July. But
Yeah. So if Cybertruck gets FSD this summer, I mean, game over for any other truck if you've got one that can drive themselves. And yeah, we got a lot of exciting FSD updates coming. For me, in this latest version of FSD, it's been able to do in my tests about 75% of the drives with zero intervention. So still 1 in 4 requiring some type of intervention, but it's usually not even safety critical. It's more like, pulling over at the destination or turning around at a dead end or something, but that the car stops safely, and then I have to kind of, give that fix. But with 12.4, which is supposed to be rolling out to employees in the coming days, and it's going to start rolling out to employees next week, we've got a huge update. First of all, Elon says the miles per intervention has gone up 5x to 10x, which is such a crazy claim. I don't even know if I believe it. I'll have to test it to myself. But it sounds like there's a significantly improved model with fewer miles per intervention. They're getting rid of the nag, which I guess kind of makes sense if you're 5 to 10x higher in terms of miles per intervention. So no being bothered about holding the steering wheel. You can go hands-free. You can keep your hands there if you want, but you're not going to be nagged about it. This is going to be huge to the user experience. This is going to be huge to what a new user experience is. So that's going to be really great. We're also going to see the ability to reverse in FSD for the first time. We've got actually Smart Summon and Vanish coming up as well. So really, really exciting set of updates. And then they're following that up with 12.5, where they're going to add the ability to go end-to-end on the highway, meaning we should see a similar improvement in highway driving that we saw in city streets. So a lot of really exciting stuff for FSD. I mean, they've just been building out compute like crazy, building out training data like crazy. And one other tidbit that Elon gave, there was some Yipit data that suggested that the free trial conversions were as low as 2%. Elon said it's actually much higher than that. The data's incorrect. So I'm interested to see, more commentary on what the conversion looks like, what the number of users looks like after these round of trials that have been going out on the Q2 earnings call. But it sounds like the response has been pretty positive from what I can see.
Just quickly, 2 other news items. Carnival, which is like the largest cruise company in the world, they announced this week that 100% of their ships across its global fleet, which I think is 90 ships, they're all equipped with Starlink now. And the CEO says it's been an absolute game changer. They've already seen a huge surge in guest satisfaction. I think a lot of people think the retail business of Starlink is bigger, but actually the enterprise side of Starlink is much bigger than the retail side of it. Yeah, they're killing it.
Yeah, and if you've ever used internet on a cruise ship before this, you know how terrible it was. Like
Yeah.
now you can actually get on the internet. So this is going to be a game changer. Probably more people be willing to book a cruise and know that they can still attend Zoom meetings, do work, and just connect to the internet like normal, even if they're in the middle of the ocean, which is pretty incredible.
I'd be curious to know how many terminals it takes for like one of the larger ships to be able to connect everybody on the ship. That'd be interesting to know.
Yeah, I think I've seen some images. It's probably like, I think they have like 5 to 10 of them or something like that.
Yeah, because I know they have business terminals, which are more expensive and more capable, but yeah, I don't know. Then the other news item was Tesla board chair Robin Denholm and others at the company reportedly plan to spend the next several weeks crisscrossing the globe to rally support from institutional investors to support the shareholder vote next month. That Wall Street Journal reported that. I have never seen Tesla executive or board members rather so active in trying to gather as much shareholder support, and I think that's telling as they recognize that this vote is probably the most important vote in Tesla's history. I certainly feel that way. And I have never seen traditionally retail shareholders, they don't really participate in these annual shareholder meetings. And I privately talked with Omar, I think it was like 5 or 6 weeks ago, and I was like, I feel like not enough people know how important this vote is. I think you and I should really step up the education for that. And I feel like we've done a good job because I think we're going to see record retail shareholder participation. And kudos to all the other people working on it. Alexandra obviously killing it with all the info she's putting out. I certainly gotten tons of DMs from people saying, how do I vote? And I try to help them the best way I can. I would just call your brokers if you don't know what to do. They can help you out. But yeah, I've never seen this many retail shareholders participate. It's pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, I've been trying to scare people a little bit. I think obviously make sure you vote all your own shares, but then go find your mom and your dad and make sure you vote their shares or help them vote their shares. Find your friends, tell them to vote their shares if they have, even 10 shares of Tesla in their portfolio. Every vote matters. I mean, this is going to be incredibly consequential to the future of the company. You really look at what's happening with Optimus, you look at what's happening with FSD, initiatives that everyone thought Musk was crazy for. But I mean, now you're seeing this AI boom happen and you're seeing these start to take off. I think it's really critical that we make sure that we retain him, obviously, and that we get him to the level of control where he's comfortable, remaining at the company long term, as opposed to focusing his efforts on XAI or X or some other company like SpaceX or whatever. So, I mean, this is really, really important. This is one thing we can all do as shareholders that is going to have a lot of impact. So, let's not make it a situation where we say, oh, maybe I should have done more. Maybe I should have made sure I voted all my shares. Make sure, we make it happen. There's a lot of people who are upset. You saw Leo Kogwan, for example, vote, 27 million shares against. Granted, that's just 0.8% of the outstanding shares. But you've got a lot of people who are voting no and campaigning for people to vote no. So every yes vote matters. And even if you're on the fence, I encourage you to vote yes just because it'll save the company a lot in legal payments. It will really simplify the situation and make it less likely that they lose their appeal, which could be costly to the company. And, if you decided to vote no, you can always go and change your vote back to yes if you see the light later.
And
You see
if you
those
think your
large
vote doesn't matter, in 2018, when the first vote happened, institutional investors made up 70% of the vote. Retail shareholders, the percentage was minuscule back then because Elon owned a lot too himself. Now, institutional investors make up about 46% of the vote, and retail shareholders are probably closer to 35-ish%. So retail shareholders have a huge say in this. So I encourage everyone to go vote.
Yeah, and most people don't know how to vote. most of these retail shareholders. So it's really about turnout. Who actually comes out and votes? So yeah,
you should even
do it. Tell everyone else. Yeah.
You should even be voting if you have one share. You should be voting even with one share.
Pretend like you're in a swing state in a presidential election. Every vote counts. You might not think one share counts or will matter, but it might.
Hey,
Yeah,
I had a Cash App account, and people can like send you different shares to your Cash App. So sometimes people send me like a Tesla share or Rivian share or whatever. I had 0.03 shares of Tesla in my Cash App account, and I voted that too.
I didn't know you could vote with less than one, but there you go. The point really that we're all making is that you should vote. And I mean, I won't speak for Sawyer and Omar, but I will tell you from my perspective, you should vote yes. And I mean, I know Sawyer and Omar agree with that, and maybe they're not willing to say that. It is nonsensical, in my view, to vote against the package. The tweet that Elon quoted of mine today, I made this point in that tweet, but I'll make the point again. There's only two things you should consider as a shareholder voting on anything. This doesn't just apply to Tesla. This applies to all stocks. If you're voting as a shareholder on a stock, you should ask yourself two questions. Number one, is the way I'm voting good for the stock? And number two, is the way I'm voting the right to vote? And that's going to vary from person to person based on your moral outlook of the situation. But on point one of if it's good for the stock, as somebody who's traded stock for my entire adult life, it's literally my career, I've been doing it for 10 years, I can promise you that the stock will not like the package not being approved, because it implies a disincentivization of the man that made it all happen in the first place. And whether or not you think Elon will leave, if it doesn't get approved, some people do think he will leave, some people don't think he'll leave, regardless of what your opinion is on that, just view it from the perspective of the market and view it from the perspective of other potential shareholders of the stock. And once you think of it that way, you'll quickly realize that voting no is self-destructive. The only people that are voting on this proposal are people that own the stock. So if you own the stock and you, I don't know, have propensity for self-pain or something, then go for it. But, it's self-destructive to do so. It is not in the best interest of the company, in my opinion, and it is not in the best interest of shareholders in any capacity. So that's my view on it. I strongly encourage everyone to vote and, do that as soon as possible.
Elon upheld his end of the deal. He delivered on the targets in the 2018 compensation plan. Now shareholders need to hold up their end of the deal and prove again. Shareholders also need to show that we don't stand for judges to retroactively invalidate our vote. I think what the judge is ruling, I think, is an insult to Tesla shareholders. And
it's not even just an insult to Tesla shareholders. It's an insult to the principles that made this country the largest stock market the world has ever seen and the largest economy the world has ever seen, because entrepreneurs and business owners and workers are incentivized to work. And when a contract is signed for a CEO to 10x the value of the company, and he does that, and then you retroactively take it away from him, it's just an insult to all the principles that built this country and built the stock market and built most of these companies. It's stupid. It is a terrible precedent to set. And it's frankly an insult to shareholders. As Sawyer said, it's an insult to the intelligence of the shareholders.
the package's incentives are well aligned with shareholder interests. Elon only did well if shareholders did well. And even today, despite us still being down 50% or so from the all-time high, Tesla stock is still up 500% from when the compensation package was implemented, 6 years ago. So I understand a lot of people came in later in 2020 and 2021. So just approach it from, what does this mean?
Don't base your opinion. Yeah, don't base your opinion on this package based on when you personally bought the stock. If you're basing your opinion on this package of, I bought the stock at the highs and now it's off the highs, so it's Elon's fault, that is frankly a stupid take to have. The stock went up a lot, 10x in the period that he was allotted. In fact, it 10x in less than a third of the period he was allotted. It was a 10-year contract.
It actually 20x'd and then fell by half, so it 10x'd.
Yeah, there you go, exactly, yeah. So, he was given 10 years to 10x the company, more than 10x the company, from 59 billion to 650 billion. He did it in 3. Now, if you want to hindsight and say, well, a lot of stocks went up during COVID, this, that, the stock market was different back then. Look back and ask yourself how many stocks 10x during that 3-year period. There aren't many. And there aren't many of Tesla size. In fact, I don't know if there's any of Tesla size 10x in a 3-year period. So just be realistic about what was done. This isn't about what you think of Elon today or what you think he may or may not do in the future. This is simply a package that was already agreed upon for the work that he already did. And keep in mind, he was not paid a salary during that period. So he was not paid for that work at all. So I think it's a pretty straightforward decision. If it's more complicated than that for some people, I mean, talk to somebody else who's a shareholder, and feel free to talk through those things. There's plenty of people I think that can talk some sense into you if you're feeling the other way. But
both Omar and I have already done long educational threads on this topic. You can just look for those and just share those with people that are clueless about this situation.
Yeah, I think the judge essentially said, I think Tesla shareholders are so stupid that they approved this plan not knowing what the full implications were and what the relationship was between Elon and the board. If you vote no, you're saying, no, I'm not stupid. I knew about it and I voted for it anyway. Voting yes is like telling the judge, yeah, I am actually an idiot. I didn't understand the thing and let's invalidate it now. I mean, you can read this, and I completely agree with Stock Talk's analysis of what it's going to do to the stock. If you're a shareholder and you're holding these shares, you can read this as, do you want a big kick in the balls? Because that's what it's going to feel like if you vote no, right? So if you don't want a big kick in the balls, then vote yes.
Depending on your position size, it might feel worse.
I see so many people making analogy well, yeah, but look what happened with Apple and Tim Cook after Steve Jobs passed away. Apple continued to thrive. This is not that situation. If Elon leaves, there's no Tim Cook. This is so different.
Yeah, I mean, just look at what's happening. Across the industry, Legacy Auto's pulling back from EVs. They don't want to make EVs anymore. They're saying, you know what, we don't really want to go all EV. We're just going to do hybrids. You see Tesla, everything they're doing with FSD, all the resistance they're facing. I mean, this is really how we're going to get to moving the country to electric rides really fast. By building a ton of autonomous electric vehicles. Even the other giants like BYD, more than half of the cars they make are gas cars. They're not pure EV makers, right? So Tesla is like the last company in the world standing that believes in pure EVs and is making autonomy happen to accelerate that. There's a lot of people who say, maybe we'd actually be better off without Elon. Maybe we'd sell more EVs to Democrats who hate him. But I mean, I think without him, really the fate of the EV transition at large is much more at risk than it is with him at the helm. So I mean, we're really deciding something that's going to be, I think, important for the future of humanity.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say on this topic before we transition to the next one, to piggyback on Sawyer's point about there being no Tim Cook, I was having an argument on Twitter a couple of days ago with somebody. It was a shareholder that was voting no, and his justification was, well, look what happened with Amazon. And look, full disclosure, I think Amazon's a great company. I'm a shareholder of Amazon as well, but he said, look what happened with Amazon. Jeff Bezos handed the wheels to Andy Jassy, and he's done a terrific job. Amazon is a fundamentally different business than Tesla, okay? Dramatically. Amazon was a mature core business exposed to secular tailwinds of e-commerce and when Jeff Bezos left the house. Tesla is a mature company now compared to where it was 5 years ago. But it is still a company that is in the growth phase. It's still a company whose background industry is not mature yet. EV adoption rate globally is still quite low. And so you're talking about a company that's in a completely different position in its industry than Amazon was, and it still requires a visionary leader. And vision is not something that is just easily replaceable. Neither is our excellent delegators of talent, and Elon happens to have both of those qualities. So if you're silly enough to believe that he's replaceable at this juncture, where the company is today, facing fundamental headwinds, facing 2 new projects, facing an enormous task of shifting to a higher software mix of the revenue, these are no small tasks. And if you think somebody else can navigate it better than Elon, I think you're sorely mistaken. And hopefully no one has to find out what the consequence of that is, because hopefully everything goes smoothly. But that's the last comment I'll make on that topic. I know we kind of beat that horse, but make sure you vote. And in my view, make sure you vote yes. But
before we go to the audience questions,
yeah, we will. One last quick thing I wanted to touch on, because I thought it was an interesting story, and Sawyer tweeted this out earlier this week, was, we've talked a lot about the bright spots in Tesla's energy business, which, through all of the tumultuous events of the last 6 quarters, that's been my favorite part from a fundamental standpoint. I think it's been excellent to see deployments very consistently ramping, and from a competitive standpoint, Tesla looks in a great position as well. But there was a story out about battery storage now on the precipice of overtaking pumped hydro energy storage, which is a big deal for people that don't know. Back in 2018, powered hydro energy storage made up 97% of all installed grid storage. Okay. In 2020, that number fell to 90%. In 2021, it fell to 86%. In 2022, it fell to 80%. 2023, it fell to 68%. 2024, it's expected to fall to 56%. And so next year could be that inflection point where battery energy storage overtakes pumped hydro energy storage on a gigawatt basis. As of the end of this year, the estimated numbers in the article that Sawyer shared say 156.6 gigawatts from battery energy storage versus 196.6 gigawatts from pumped hydro. That's pretty crazy. I feel like that story kind of went overlooked this week. I didn't see a lot of people talking about it. But what are your guys' thoughts there? I think that's a huge tailwind for the energy storage industry. And especially if that trend continues, it seems like a no-nonsense way to boost grid storage capacity around the world.
Yeah, that growth is actually pretty nuts. And a lot of people assume batteries are really just a small, tiny portion of the overall grid percentage, but it's growing massively. Just look at California. Like during peak hours, coal peaker plants are making a much, much smaller percentage of the overall grid mix due to a lot of stationary battery storage. It's growing massively. And we're only just like in the first inning still.
Yeah, go look at how much energy an AI data center uses. Go look it up. It's crazy. These NVIDIA H100s, they suck power up like it's no tomorrow. So what are we really looking at here? We're looking at a massive increase in demand for electricity. We're looking at a massive decrease in things like electricity because you can now build these artificial intelligence models that can essentially replace human labor in many cases, and you do that using electricity. So there's going to be a tremendous investment in data centers and electricity. We're also moving all of our cars to electricity. We're also taking home heating. This is happening at a slower pace, but people are moving their heating to heat pumps. Basically, everything is going to be moved to electricity because we know how to build electric capacity that doesn't generate any emissions using renewables. So we have to massively increase the amount of electricity we're producing and consuming. And the cheapest way by far to build out new capacity is solar and wind. Because you don't have to keep buying fuel, you don't have to keep buying coal, you don't have to keep buying natural gas. You make the upfront investment in the facility and then the sun keeps shining, the wind keeps blowing, whatever. So solar plus battery is going to be really the best way to build out this capacity. And if you look at electric generation capacity additions in the United States, more than 90% are actually renewables today, which is crazy if you think about it. So solar plus battery is really going to be crucial to being able to actually execute on AI, on moving all the cars to electricity, on moving other things to electricity. And this is really going to be a long-term secular trend towards just the growth of battery storage and renewables, I believe.
before we go to the audience, just real quick, we got some news while we were live. Tesla won approval for its expansion of the Giga Berlin after a meeting between community members and local officials today. Good news.
Protesters are in shambles after all that effort storming the factory.
Were those even protesters? That was just like so stupid.
No, it got crazier when you read the story, okay? So I read the story and it's like, they've been living in the forest for months where Giga Berlin plans to expand. Like, huh? You guys have been living in the forest? What? And then they lived in the forest for months and still failed to stop the expansion. So, I mean, with this expansion, Giga Berlin is going to become the biggest car factory in Europe, which is crazy. It's going to be bigger than the Wolfsburg facility. They're talking about expanding to 1 million units a year. And they're actually going to be producing Tesla's new low-cost models, which they're coming out with in 2025. So that's going to be super exciting for Berlin.
Awesome. We'll go to the audience here for some questions. We only have about 10 minutes left, but we might run a couple minutes over if they're good questions. Couple of things. Make sure if you're requested to speak, to ask a question, that you're following the main account that's at We Talk Tesla. And also make sure you keep your questions or comments to the point and as brief as possible. Let me bring up a couple people here. Okay, Mr. Joker, you are first up. What's going on?
Oh, geez, you caught me off guard, but I've got something. So I just read an article that Tesla is going to have cheaper batteries than the other suppliers by the end of the year. So the 4680 or whatever the cell is going to be cheaper than all the cells coming from the suppliers. Any thoughts on that?
Well, cheaper than the nickel-based suppliers, so it's still going to be more expensive than LFP, but it'll be cheaper than Panasonic and LG. So, I mean, they've been working for years, since 2020, and now they're finally at the point where they can get some benefit into their business and have these nickel-based batteries that are lower cost than the suppliers. And that's only going to continue to improve over time. So 4680 is finally ramping. It's finally starting to pay off a little bit. You know, we're still at relatively small volumes, you know, less than 50,000 vehicles a year worth. But it's one key point that I would be interested in is the IRA subsidies included there? Because if the IRA subsidies are included, then okay, it's really actually still, you know, quite more expensive than the suppliers, but they're getting a tax credit. If they've actually achieved lower cost before the IRA credits, then that's huge, because with the credits it would be even lower than that.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate it.
Alexis, you're up next.
Yes, hello everybody.
Oh,
So,
Alexa,
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry, my Alexa fell apart.
So I asked today my broker to, I'm in Switzerland, so he sent me the documents and we spoke a bit. So he told me that the interest is very big in Switzerland from retail investors, because I was not the first one to ask, so apparently it's a big interest. So I think the people who are voting, they are voting yes, obviously. So my second question is, why do you think institutional investors could vote no? So what would be the interest? They know that the stock would drop. And another thing that a comment that I would like to make is why we are keep talking about Elon leaving. Why should Elon leave even if it gets outvoted, which is very unlikely? So Elon should say, okay, now I'm leaving. I worked here for so many years. I slept on the floor, but now I leave everything because it was 51% no and 49% yes. This doesn't make any sense. He would not quit like this. So
Alexis, just to address
yes.
the point you're making,
Yes.
I understand the point you're making. Look, the threat is not so much so Elon leaving, at least in my opinion. The threat is more so him being disincentivized from sharing future AI or software projects with the company internally rather than in his own initiatives, like XAI, for example. That's the risk, right? It's a risk of incentivization. It's not so much a risk of like he's going to abandon the company if it's not approved. You know, I agree with you that that's very far-fetched. But, you know, look, right now we're in an age of a bunch of new software products being launched in AI. We've seen, you know, some rumors about XAI procuring agreements with Oracle and others to, you know, start ramping up its AI initiatives. Elon's incentive to build things at Tesla comes from being paid to do so to a degree, not entirely, because, you know, obviously, like you said, the company's been his baby for a long time. And so I think there's an emotional connection there too. But partially, at least, there is an economic incentive for him to do work at Tesla. And that's where the risk is.
Okay, let's see. Let's hope for the best.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's necessarily going to just automatically leave. I think he is really excited by what's going on at the company. And, you know, but just think about it like this, right? You're at your job. You've been working there since 2018, the last 6 years. You worked your ass off. You've been sleeping at the factory, neglecting your family, pouring your blood, sweat, and tears into the company, and it ends up becoming one of the most valuable companies in the world. And then one fine day, your boss comes and he says, hey, I'm gonna need you to give back all your salary for the last 6 years because, fuck you. You know, how would you react? Would you keep working at the company? And he says, you know, we may not pay you in the future. I mean, you'd probably leave the job, right? So if we're not incentivizing him to work, we're not paying him, why should he be building a robot at Tesla instead of at XAI where he has majority control? If the shareholders are rejecting him, you know, this is essentially a referendum on Elon himself. If the shareholders are saying, we hate you, fuck you, we don't want to pay you, is that even a company where he can feel safe actually building these world-changing innovations like artificial general intelligence or even specific AI without, you know, being worried about who's going to have control over that technology ultimately? Because in a publicly traded company, it's not necessarily going to be him.
Yeah, I feel like it would also be really discouraging to Elon if shareholders reject his compensation plan after he delivered on the targets in the plan that shareholders approved originally. And those shareholders, you know, reap the benefits, the rewards of that by the stock going up 500% at the current levels from where it was in 2018. And let's not pretend like Tesla would have been done just as well with any other person at the helm. Like, it wouldn't have. There's only one Elon.
Yeah, and you know, I think just the idea of performance-based pay is a fantastic idea. CEOs who get paid nothing if they do a crappy job and get paid commensurately if they deliver shareholder value, right? Because he created so much wealth for other people, for me, for Sawyer, for others who held the stock, and it was because he was incentivized to do so. If we set a precedent through courts that this is actually not legal, then I think we as a country are worse off because we lose the ability to actually incentivize executives to deliver shareholder returns. We live in like a bizarro world where the guy who actually was the best CEO in the auto industry gets paid nothing, and the highest paid CEO is actually Peter Rawlinson, who is the worst CEO in the industry. And you look at Mary Barra, the stock price is just flat for years and years and years, and she got paid millions of dollars. Imagine if her incentives had been more closely tied to shareholder returns. She would have either A, delivered returns for the shareholders, or B, left the company because she wasn't being compensated, given the lack of returns. So I think this is a really important precedent to set. We should be able to incentivize executives based on their performance.
Yeah, you could be a GM shareholder and you would have gained 10% over the last 10 years. It's like 1% a year. And when the compensation plan went into effect in mid 2018, Tesla's market cap was at 50 billion. Today it's at 550. So 10x.
Yep. Okay, we'll jump to I think it was Byron next. Okay, maybe not. Byron fell down. EcoScan, did we already go to you?
No, that's me.
Go for it.
Okay, so my question is, when Tesla ramps up the Cybertruck up to 250,000 a year, is it probable that we'll see more capacity with Tesla?
Yeah, I think we could see them getting up to 500,000 units, but they haven't made any announcements in that respect yet. So they're still a far ways off from even 250. So maybe once they get closer to that, they can share further expansion plans if needed.
Okay, thank you.
AR, you're next. Here's the last question.
All right, thank you. Just a side note, I voted all my shares yes. The obvious thing to do. On the supercharger firing of everyone, I haven't heard this side of the story. I think it's a positive instead of the mainstream media saying that it's haphazard and disorganized and negative. I mean, look at Rich Otto. I know he was in a different department, but he left and badmouthed the company. If you fire everybody, that's really the quickest and surest way to find out who the people that are worth staying at the company and who the people are that didn't want to be there in the first place. I mean, it's a great weeding out process, and I think Elon is using it very effectively in the past. And I think he knows what he's doing. So I think it's simple like that. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think if you are going to do firings, a lot of them, like try to do them as quickly as possible, because you don't want a situation where like you're doing drip type firings, where it's like every Sunday you have another firing emo. Because that just really impacts morale, I feel like, internally. And you don't want a situation that also like you're affecting potential incoming talent and dissuading them from coming. So I suspect we're probably near the end of the firings. If not, we're already at the end. But yeah, this is sort of just classic Elon, where he makes seemingly an abrupt decision and then we'll just rehire or backtrack a little bit later. He's done this a few times in the past, so it's not like this is unprecedented.
Yeah, I was watching Revenge of the Electric Car, which is about the launch of the Tesla Roadster in 2008 to 2010. And, you're seeing these articles in the movie, Tesla running out of cash, Musk forced to lay people off, Tesla departs with Zhao. And I'm like, who's Zhao? But he was some important person back then that it was, a news story that he left the company. So, I mean, it seems kind of crazy. It is a little bit crazy, but I think there is a little bit of method to the madness. Really, what he was telling people is, with the Rebecca Tanucci firing and laying off most of her team, you need to cut and get serious about cutting, or you will be cut. And we're going to see that in the OPEX line item in the coming quarters. So he's been around a while. Everybody knows how to run the business better than him, apparently, if you read the news, which is, surprising we don't have more Teslas given how many business geniuses there are. But when you don't cut enough, what you end up with is a situation where your company dies because you lose money and the market panics and your company's just hurt. He's been around enough times to know what he has to do. And the sort of panic over there not being superchargers has turned out to be a little bit detached from reality.
All right, like another great space. We appreciate all of you for listening in. Again, make sure you're following the We Talk Tesla account. Yeah, make sure you're following the We Talk Tesla account. And we appreciate you guys. We'll see you next week, same time, same place, 1 p.m. Eastern through 2 p.m. Eastern. We appreciate all of you guys for tuning in.
said you've had a focus since you were a child, right?
Yeah. Found my first one when I fell into a ruin. Got the others from an old cache not long ago. It's good to have extras.
Going into a ruin of the old ones. Goddess protect us.
We'll be okay, Varl. Through here.
Welcome to the Far Zenith launch facility.
I guess they want us to check in with them.
Please hold for identiscan. Access denied. Please be here for personnel to assist you. Dr. Sobek.
Okay. I guess they weren't on great terms with Elizabeth. Well, let's find a way in.
Please hold for identiscan. Access denied. Credentials not recognized.
I guess it doesn't like me either.
climbing gear. Unless someone dropped in from above. Whoever left this here might have also shot those machines in rubble in that gap. scan the area. We have to find a way to keep going.
Proceed into the auditorium, where we'll